Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, and second canto, and we are going to be doing the second chapter. We concluded the previous chapter, but there is an extension of the previous chapter which is also presented in the first few verses of the present chapter, which is the second chapter. In the previous chapter, Srila Sukadev Goswami recognizes and establishes the fact that there can be different levels of faith. Regardless of where we are, the point is that we are devotees who are following the 10th canto, where Krishna establishes himself as Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He establishes himself as the absolute truth. He establishes himself in the most simple, easy to understand form, which is a two-arm form with activities which are extraordinarily human-like. But then, as you approach the 10th canto, we come across the many cantos before that, where his forms are not two-armed, they are multiple-armed. In some cases, he carries 10 arms, and there are 10 different weapons that he is projecting. But as you come to the 10th canto, Krishna's form becomes quite simple. The manifestation of the Lord is very simple. It's a two-armed human form, which is quite comprehensible. But again, Krishna's two-armed form, though externally simple to view, is the most complicated of all secrets. It is most confidential. How do we learn this? We learn this from the fact that the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, was bewildered because he wasn't used to seeing God in a two-armed form. He couldn't comprehend the simplicity of a cowherd boy in the land of Vraja, who is bluish colored, who is herding the cows with his friends. He couldn't comprehend the simplicity and the extraordinary presence of the Lord in that particular simple human form. So, as far as Krishna is concerned, the simpler he becomes, the more complex he is. The simpler he becomes, more and higher the consciousness that is required to recognize him. Not everybody is given a window of opportunity to recognize him on the land of Vraja. Mother Devaki was not given an opportunity to recognize Krishna in Vraja. She recognized him as the four-armed form of Vishnu. It is only Mother Yashoda who could see him in his two-armed form and to accept him and relish his association, be able to serve him, love him as a mother would, with absolutely no hindrance even of his extraordinary manifestation of power. Aishwarya, which is the opulence of the Lord, is left behind and completely covered over. It's not left behind, perhaps covered over in Vraja by the sweetness of his presence. So he appears in a very sweet two-armed form, but is extraordinarily complex because the complexity lies in the fact that he is simple. And we understand that he is very complex because the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, was bewildered. He couldn't figure out this particular form of the Lord. The devotees of Dwaraka are not given a window to understand him in this particular form. They understand him in the four-armed form as Vishnu. But in Braja, he is a cowherd boy. He is Krishna, the beloved of the gopis. He is the beloved of the cowherd boys. He is the beloved of the animals of Raja. And as a consequence, in Raja, Nam, the name of Krishna, is pure. It's called Shuddhanam. Why is it called Shuddhanam in Raja? It is called Shuddhanam in Raja because when you call Krishna, you practically are addressing the absolute truth in his particular manifestation of activities, which is the most complex and bewildering even to the creator of the universe in Raja. The Nam in Raja is not covered over by Aishwarya. The Nam in Dwaraka is covered over by Aishwarya. The Nam in Raja, the sweetness of Nam in Raja covers over the opulence of the Lord. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Sri Uddhava, the cousin of Krishna, When he was coming back to Vrindavan to convey a message from Krishna from Dwaraka, his chariot was glorious. It is described as one of in a very opulent manner, an extraordinary chariot. And when he was entering into Vraja, the cows were coming home. It's an extraordinary sight. If you're lucky enough and you're here in Vrindavan at around 6 o'clock in the evening, we might see the cows returning home. Surprisingly, they all know where to go, which is quite astonishing. They all know where to go. They all go grazing around, and then you find the group being led by one cow or two cows, and they all make their left and their right turns into the streets of Vrindavan, and they go home. So when the cows of Vrindavan were returning home, when Krishna's Leela was happening 5,000 years back, when it was manifest, the dust from the hooves of the cows covered over the chariot of Dwaraka. Essentially, the Acharyas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his commentary was that the opulence of Dwaraka, the Aishwarya of Dwaraka, was being covered over by the sweetness of Vraja. Vraja is sweet, the dust of Vraja is sweet, the dust of Vraja covers over the opulence of Dwaraka. So when Krishna presents himself here in Vraja, his activities with the gopis, which is the supermost exchange of love between the Lord and his devotees, is most complex. Then his activities with his parents, very complex. With his friends, same, very complex. With his servants. So in Vrindavan, the 4 different mellows of exchange between Krishna and the devotees is very complex, and it requires the highest level of consciousness and cannot be comprehended. It can't be understood if you are outside of Vraja, or if you have not been given mercy by those who have received such mercy and a vision in Vraja. Fortunately, in the Gaudiya Siddhanta and the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, we are being initiated and we are being given mercy by those who have descended from Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Rupanugas. We are Rupanugas. We are following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. And the writings of the Acharyas, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, is the most confidential of presentations into an understanding of Godhead. There's nothing more confidential than what was written by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And we are being initiated in that lineage. As a consequence, we receive mercy that allows us to understand the sweetness of Vraja to some extent, the extent to which we have adhikar. Depending on our adhikar, adhikar means authority, adhikar means the vision that has been provided to us by mercy. Yeah? Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. You can't really see unless you have been given Prema Bhakti. The ointment of Prema has to be smeared onto the eyes of one who can see the activities in Vraja. So since we receive mercy, we have the ability to understand and comprehend and experience Vraja to some extent. Not fully, because we're not there yet, but to whatever extent we have advanced, we have the ability to appreciate Vraja, appreciate the pastimes of Krishna, which are simple but yet most complex, because even the creator of the universe can't understand it. Lord Indra, the king of heavens, he was bewildered too. We all know that. The Govardhan Leela took place here in Vraja because of that particular fact. He was bewildered. He couldn't comprehend Krishna's presence. He could not comprehend and he could not understand. He could not fathom the fact that this little boy has the capacity to provide even above his authority. He couldn't comprehend that. So the point being, these great personalities who are managing the universe cannot comprehend Vraja. They cannot comprehend the simplistic presentation of Godhead, who is the absolute truth in Vraja. But he is the origin of all forms of Krishna. I'm sorry, all forms of Godhead. All Vishnu forms have their origin in Krishna. Everything is manifested from him in Vraja. He is the avatari. He is the beginning. He is the beginning. He is practically the source of all incarnations. So this understanding was given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, but then he also starts with the universal form. He starts with presenting the universal form, which is a material manifestation where the devotee is able to see all the separated energies of Krishna together as multiple heads and multiple arms and various different activities of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, which is what the universal form is. The universal form is a combination of the various devatas and the different administrators and expansions of Krishna. These are separated energies who administer the material universe, and they are all situated in activities which can be classified into sattva, rajas, and tamas. Basically, the universal form is a representation of time. Time in the material universe, because time in the material universe have a beginning and end. Right now, the world, the planet is in a crisis. It is a crisis of great proportion. Yeah, we could all see it. There's panic. And the reason why we see this is because this particular planet is exposed to the time factor in such a way that we are exposed to the mode of ignorance, and we are exposed to the mode of passion and mode of goodness, the three different modes. The universal form is a manifestation of time. And as a consequence, one is able to see creation, maintenance, and destruction all inclusive with its various aspects and the separated energies all being presented together. Krishna and his different manifestations. He is describing himself in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He calls himself the time. Yeah, the Virat Rupa is the time factor. He says, time I am, and I have come to kill everyone. He makes the statement because that's the feature of time. The feature of Kala is to end things. Whatever begins has to end. But Krishna consciousness is beyond the influence of material time. As a consequence, when we act in Krishna consciousness and the extent to which we act in Krishna consciousness, and when we use the word extent, we are saying the extent to which we have developed our relationship, the extent to which we have understood our sambandha with Krishna, to that extent, our relationship and our activities in the planet would be influenced. The extent to which one understands their eternal place and the extent to which one identifies with the eternal form and service to Krishna, to that extent, the activities on this planet would be preserved because they are not subject to time. And we should understand that that's exactly what we mean by increasing our sambandha. Our whole sadhana is about increasing sambandha. Our whole sadhana is to increase an opportunity for us to understand who we are in relationship to Krishna. Because once we understand who we are, once we understand our identity, dharma would be established. Because without knowing who you are, you wouldn't know what to do. And as a consequence, for us to be able to act efficiently in the service of the Lord, one needs to increase their sambandha. One needs to learn to love him properly, according to Shastra. In how to love him. How do you love someone if you do not know who we are? As a consequence, we develop who we are, the relationship with Krishna. We learn to love him. And then once we learn to love him, we learn to surrender, because without love, there cannot be surrender. And once there is love and once there is surrender, one would understand how to serve, because without love and surrender, there is no service. Yeah? So this is basically the Siddhanta. And he starts with the universal form. Now, what is being said in the second chapter? The second chapter talks about the Lord in the heart, but Srila Sukadeva Goswami establishes this particular fact by talking about the bewilderment of Lord Brahma when he appears from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. He says Lord Brahma forgot his whole process of creation. He forgot what to do because he was bewildered by the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance makes us forget. The mode of ignorance makes us forget. When Jaya and Vijaya, the two servants of Krishna, offended the Kumaras, the four Kumara brothers, when they were visiting Jaya and Vijaya in Vaikuntha, when they were visiting Krishna in Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijaya, they offended the Kumaras. And it is said that once the offense was known, Vishnu came running down, and it is said he forgot to wear his shoes. The Lord came running down and he forgot even to wear his shoes. He was not wearing his shoes. He completely forgot. And then he makes a statement. They would not have acted like this. They have acted in this manner of offending you. They have committed Vaishnava Aparadh. And this Vaishnava Aparadh is being committed because they have forgotten me. He makes a statement. They have forgotten me. Because they have forgotten me, they are doing this. So the bewilderment of forgetting who we are occurs because of coming in touch with the mode of ignorance. And Krishna makes this statement in 15:15 of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, "From me come remembrance and forgetfulness." Yeah? From me come remembrance and forgetfulness. This is 15:15 of the Bhagavad Gita. That is the key or the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita. The most important verse which captures the entire essence of the Bhagavad Gita is 15:15, according to our acharyas. And in that particular verse, he says, "From me come remembrance and forgetfulness." So here, why does Krishna give forgetfulness? Krishna gives forgetfulness because there's a desire to forget him. There's a desire to identify ourselves with separated energies. There's a desire to establish an identity in this material world which is based on the temporary body and the temporary state. That's why Krishna allows this forgetfulness to come. Lord Brahma forgot his original presence. He even forgot who he was. He forgot who he was, and he forgot his process of creation. He forgot. And at that point in time, Krishna gives him intelligence to meditate on the universal form. By meditating on the universal form, Lord Brahma is able to regain the knowledge that is required to create. Yeah? He is able to regain the knowledge that is required to create. Essentially, he is able to capture this whole process. He is able to regain the knowledge that was required to create by meditating on the universal form. Then Srila Sukadeva Goswami says that by meditating on the universal form, one is able to overcome the forgetfulness. We don't need to do that. As devotees, we do not need to meditate on the universal form. As devotees of the Lord who are meditating and who have the ability to be given knowledge about Vraja, we meditate on the eternal form of the Lord in Vraja with Srimati Radharani. That is our business. Our business is to meditate on Krishna in Vraja with Srimati Radharani. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are starting off at the base. They're starting off with establishment of faith, and that particular establishment of faith is at a level which is quite rudimentary, and the rudimentary level is to focus on the universal form. In this particular chapter, one progresses from an establishment of focus on the universal form, and they practically talk about how Lord Brahma regained his consciousness and his memory so that he could focus on the process of creation. And what is the process? What is it which happens here? For one to regain their knowledge, one needs to be liberated, which is what is being established here. Lord Brahma, by meditating on the universal form, was elevating himself beyond material creation, and as a consequence, he was able to do what is required in the service of the Lord. Once there's remembrance of our eternal identity, service begins. This is the point we made earlier. That is being established early on here, where Lord Brahma meditated on the universal form, and as a consequence, he could understand and remember what his activities were and what he's meant to do. Yeah? So that's being talked of here. And then there's also a great mention of a very important topic. The very important topic that's being discussed here is basically the qualities that are required for one to make advancement. In the previous chapter, we spoke of the fact that the quality that is required for one to become steady in Krishna consciousness is for us to be able to, at the very least, establish the focus that is required to make our day and make our particular endeavor uncluttered, focusing on reinforcing the identity of being a servant of the Lord, bringing it to the forefront. This is being seen. So what we are trying to say here is that there's a necessity for being able to reinforce our identity of being a servant of the Lord, and that reinforcement is done through sadhana bhakti. But that reinforcement which establishes our identity as a servant of the Lord is practically the necessity for us to be able to serve him, because without having an identity, one can't serve. How would you know what to do if you didn't know who you are? If you did not have a specific position in your organization, how would you know what responsibilities are you to be executing on a day-to-day basis? If you're not given a certain title, and if you're not being told that this is what is expected from you in this particular title, then how would you know what to do and what not to do? The same thing practically applies to Krishna consciousness. So this is all about being able to remember. And the first position of remembering, which is being given here, is to have an agenda, have a plan. So in the first chapter, Srila Sukadev Goswami talks about Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadya Anavratam, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam, Bhakti Uttama. He talks about the fact that you cannot have an agenda of wanting to leave the material world. You cannot have an agenda of wanting to achieve things within the material world. If you really want to practice Uttama Bhakti, you need to have an agenda of wanting to serve the Supreme Lord in Vraja. He's basically establishing the qualifications required for executing service in the first chapter as well. That is extended. Then he is talking about the various ways to attain Krishna. So he's talking about how one can engage in karma yoga, which is action in this world. You need to remember who you are, and you can't remember who you are unless Krishna can give you the memory that is required. So when we reinforce our identity as being a servant of the Lord, everything becomes easy. If you want to achieve things, achieve Krishna consciousness first, because by achieving Krishna consciousness first, everything else would become clear. If we set an agenda of succeeding in this world, we may attain success, but we may not become Krishna conscious. On the other hand, if the singular agenda is to attain Krishna consciousness, and then we meditate on Krishna, requesting him, saying, please give us the intelligence that is required so that we don't develop understandings and goals and aspirations which are not connected to you, Krishna will provide the intelligence. The safe path is to establish ourselves in Krishna consciousness. That is the safe path. And once you establish yourself in Krishna consciousness, extending that consciousness to achieving things in this world is very easy because you are descending. It's very easy to manage the mode of passion and ignorance if you are at a vantage point above them. You cannot manage life if you are in passion and ignorance, because there is no question of management. We will have to live life according to the modes. They would dictate life. They would dictate an agenda. They would give us goals. This is what we experience when we work in the corporate world. When we work in the corporate world gives you an agenda. The boss tells you what you need to achieve for the year. They set an agenda based on passion and ignorance. But if you are at a vantage point which is way above that, then you have the ability to not get swayed by that. It does not mean we walk away from duties. It simply means that we don't set that up as our agenda fully. We accept the role that we are given. We do our very best to do what is required in terms of dharma in that particular capacity. But again, we don't play into those goals to such an extent that they overwhelm our ability to serve in Krishna consciousness. Please be very, very careful, because this was addressed in the previous chapter. This is the Grahamedi versus Grahastha paradigm. The Grahamedi, as they advance in material life, they develop complications. Why? Because as the salary increases, the house becomes bigger, the mortgage becomes bigger, the cars increase, the monthly payments increase. This is Grahamedi. And then every goal from there on is set by the complexity of their existence. The Grahastha, on the other hand, is looking to simplify. Why are they looking to simplify? They're looking to simplify because planning for Krishna consciousness is easy in the mode of goodness. Simplicity helps us. Simplicity doesn't allow us to set agendas which can distract us from the goal of Krishna consciousness. As a consequence, if you have a simple enough setup which doesn't really demand too much energy, then it allows us to focus on the goals of Krishna consciousness. The opposite is, if you have a complex setup in the material world, that setup is going to drive your life. It is going to drive your life. It is going to set goals. It is going to set aspirations. It is going to get you going in a direction based on how things are. If they're very complex, then many a time we wouldn't be able to engage in Krishna consciousness. So one, setting goals is very important. How do we set goals? We set goals by coming in touch with sadhus. Krishna consciousness is a matter of faith. Coming in touch with the faithful is how we receive faith through sound energy. Just as much as if you hear the sound from someone who is outside of Krishna consciousness, then we develop agendas and goals based on what they have understood of what life is. Sound begins everything. Sound begins everything. If you chant Harinam, your life would establish itself based on Harinam. If you're a sincere chanter of Harinam, the future of the devotee is established by the mantra itself, because that's Krishna himself. If we hear Srimad Bhagavatam from those who have faith in Srimad Bhagavatam, then our life is based on the faith that is carried in the heart of the devotees who speak Srimad Bhagavatam. This is how it works. Faith is passed on through sound vibration. It's passed on from one guru to the disciple, to the guru. He who becomes a guru, then to the disciple. This is how we have received our faith. If Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Srila Rupa Goswami on the banks of Ganga in Prayag, that instruction was given to Srila Rupa Goswami in his heart. Srila Rupa Goswami cultivated that faith and gave realizations. Those realizations are carried forward by our parampara. So the faith that was given by Mahaprabhu in the form of sound, in the form of energy, in the form of instructions, is carried from the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami to every descendant who is sincere. That is how we have received our faith. The faith in our heart started with the sound vibration emanating from the lotus mouth of Mahaprabhu. When Gauranga Mahaprabhu spoke to Srila Rupa Goswami, the Rupanugas received the faith from Srila Rupa Goswami's heart. Srila Rupa Goswami received it in his heart. He passed it on to his disciples. They passed that faith in form of sound energy to their disciples. The sound energy is passed from one heart to the other. And here we are still trying to share that sound which is being given to us from Mahaprabhu himself. This is how faith is established. Faith is established through sound. If you hear sounds which are outside of our faith, and if you're not careful, if you're not protected, then the chances of us establishing a goal which is outside of Krishna consciousness is almost assured. It's certain. The problem with such a goal is that it would interfere with Krishna consciousness. If today our life is interfering with Krishna consciousness, if today our lifestyles are interfering with Krishna consciousness, it is because we are motivated by a sound energy that is not connected to the parampara. Someone motivated us to follow what we are today. If today life is so complex that we can't focus on Krishna consciousness, it is because we gave in. Now we are trying to fit Krishna into this particular scenario. That's our struggle. To re-establish our faith, we are hearing from those who have faith. And then we chalk out what our future is based on what is being given. This is sound energy. That's why hearing Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis is the fundamental basis for Krishna consciousness in this yuga. Why? Because when you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, faith is passed on. When you come in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, faith is passed on. We need faith. A crisis which is happening today around the world requires us to have faith. It requires us to have faith. If you don't come in touch with faith, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, if you don't come in touch with faith, which is Naam, if you don't come in touch with faith, which is the deity form of Krishna and the Dham, then we have no chance. We really have no chance, because faith is required. Faith is very, very valuable. It is an essential commodity, and it is very scarce. There's nothing more valuable than faith, because it's not available in abundance, especially in today's world. So we have to be very cautious in wanting to preserve the faith that's been given to us. We cultivate and water the faith that's been given to us by constantly endeavoring to align our lifestyles to what's being shared by the parampara. This is our endeavor. So a part of what is being discussed in today's chapter has to do with how sound is bewildering. Sound is bewildering because there are so many different messages and so many different agendas in the world today. Even more so today than it ever was. Today it's most complex because there are so many different agendas which are being presented to us. And Krishna consciousness is the highest agenda. That's the reason why Krishna consciousness can benefit the entire creation, not just the planet. Why? Because it is completely non-sectarian, It has absolutely no agenda. It's pure in its pursuit of the absolute truth. There is no politics. There is no such thing as you have to belong to a certain race. You have to belong to a certain gender. You have to belong to a certain orientation. We are not confused here in Krishna consciousness. Our agenda is very clear. But if you go outside of Krishna consciousness and you establish yourself and try to do things in the world based on the philosophy that's being shared outside, then we have problems if we can't manage what you hear. How do we manage what we hear outside? Because sound energy is dangerous. We manage everything based on chastity to what is being shared in scripture. If we are chaste to Srimad Bhagavatam, if we are chaste to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and we have understood, absorbed, and we are living the scripture, then hearing things outside is not an issue. For one who is absolutely faithful to Srimad Bhagavatam, if they are exposed to an environment which is complex, it is not a problem. So we are not really talking about not exposing ourselves to what's being given in the world. We are not talking about going into a cave. We are not talking about rejecting everything. Even Sri Ishopanishad talks about the fact that there has to be some level of understanding of nations if you want to understand the truth. One has to understand what is a lie to understand and appreciate the truth, is what the Sri Ishopanishad was talking about. Some understanding of the falsehood of material energy is required. So the point is, we are not really talking about cocooning ourselves and covering ourselves and going into a cave. That's not what we are talking about. What we are talking about. If you want to venture out, what we are really saying is, if you want to venture out, establish yourself in faith so deep that it would not disturb you. It's like protecting yourself before you step out today. If your immunity, if your spiritual immunity by coming in touch with Krishna consciousness is very high, then you can interact with almost anything you want and it won't affect you. If your spiritual immunity is low because the faith in Krishna consciousness is somewhat unsteady, then venturing out and experimenting and coming in touch with different kinds of sounds is a problem. When I use the word sound, I'm talking about ideas. I'm talking about agendas. I'm talking about goals. I'm talking about identifying ourselves with anything outside of what's been given in the parampara. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, some of you are beginning your life, some of you are midway through it, some of you are, further down. One thing that you would truly appreciate sometime in the future would be that you had chanted your Naam and read Srimad Bhagavatam and associated with devotees consistently. If there would be anything in life that you would truly appreciate further down the road, it would be this. Everything else is relative. Everything else is relative. It's relative because it's temporary. It changes. This you would truly appreciate. If you have achieved nothing, at all according to material calculations, but if you have achieved this, trust me, you would be super happy. That would be the best position you could find yourself in if you're successful in Krishna consciousness. Success in Krishna consciousness is to be faithful to the agenda of the Guru Parampara. This is success. We do not know if we are eventually going to know who we are in the spiritual sky. We do not know. But what we do know is how to be chaste to the Guru Parampara. If you're chaste to the Guru Parampara, then we do know that at least we are walking on the right road. It's a simple thing. And how do we observe if you're walking on the straight road? Because sometimes we may think we are successful in Krishna consciousness, because today there are so many different standards of success. In reality, there aren't many. According to our Guru Parampara, there aren't many. If you want to really measure yourself, calibrate yourself, there are 5 different parameters that you need to use to check yourself on a daily basis, weekly basis. See if you're fitting into the silos that were required by the Guru Parampara. Are you expected and are you doing well in Sadhu Sangha? Are you appreciating Sadhu Sangha? Does a sadhu disturb you, or does a sadhu's presence feel quite comfortable, warm, and you're looking forward to it? Some of us get disturbed. Truth be told, there can be a disturbance when people see Vaishnavas too. That's an offense to the Vaishnava. But we end up seeing everything else other than the fact that they are Vaishnavas. This happens. So first we need to check the quality of our sadhu sangha. And when I use the word sadhu sangha, it literally means sangha with those who have the ability to inspire us. Are we regularly in touch with those who are inspiring us to chant Harinam? Because that's the next step. Nama Smaran, Nama Kirtan comes next. The third step is to be able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam every day. Are we motivated to chant? Are we motivated to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? Are we motivated to worship our deities and visit the temples? Are we motivated to come to the Dham or appreciate or at least desire wanting to be in the Dham? We want to calibrate ourselves and see if our chastity to a Guru Parampara is quite good, then all of this would increase manifold on a year-by-year basis. If our chastity is weak and we are hearing sound energy from all over the place and establishing goals which are not directly connected or useful to Krishna consciousness, then these 5 attributes of Krishna consciousness would be quite weak in us. There is no need to look and see how we feel. The feelings of a devotee in terms of whether they are doing well and they're not doing well, I'm feeling good and I'm not feeling good, are completely inconsequential. They're secondary. What is important is to see if the endeavor is present and there's chastity. Are we putting in the efforts to come into sadhu sangha? Are we expecting and appreciating sadhus? Because if you can't appreciate sadhus, then there would not be quite an opportunity to come in touch with sadhus. Are we appreciating Harinam? Are we holding on to our bead bags? Are we really appreciating the time that we spend chanting Harinam? Are we really appreciating Srimad Bhagavatam? Do we understand that Harinam is non-different from Krishna? Do we understand that the faith of Krishna attracting us, the Akarshana Shakti of Krishna, Krishna attracting us happens through sadhus. They carry Krishna in their hearts. Krishna attracting us happens through Nam. So if we don't appreciate sadhus and if we don't appreciate Nam, and we don't appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam, which is non-different from Krishna, and we don't appreciate the deities and we don't appreciate coming to the Dham and spending time, etc., or even having desires, then we should know that there's something amiss, that we would want to see how we could improve upon things. So we can check that. Yeah? How we feel about doing things in Krishna consciousness doesn't matter. The point is, I may really not like waking up early in the morning and chanting because I haven't been able to appreciate it as yet. But if I'm still doing it, I'm still being very faithful and chaste to my Guru. So we should observe ourselves and our actions based on what we do, not how we feel. Because sometimes we may not feel comfortable doing many of the things that we ought to do, which are good for us. So we shouldn't be misled by how we feel. Those are sentiments. It is said that as one advances, they become more enthusiastic. As one advances to Bhava Bhakti, one advances and goes from Vaidhi to Raganuga Bhakti, where the attachment is spontaneous. The spontaneity is reflected in sadhana. One is able to jump out and grab the bead bag and chant. One is very eager to share and receive realizations. This is spontaneity. We do not need to extend it anywhere beyond because that will happen automatically. We just need to understand that this is also spontaneity. We need to be able to appreciate it. So this is how we measure ourselves. So what is being given here is about setting agendas. This chapter is about setting agendas. Is able to clarify what is really required for someone on the path of Krishna consciousness. This chapter is about remembering and forgetting Krishna. This chapter is about being able to understand the necessity for keeping life simple enough so that we are able to focus on the main goals of life. This chapter is about understanding the power of sound energy. Sound in the form of ideas, sound in the form of perhaps different levels of faith. So this chapter is about an extension of how even Lord Brahma, who is the creator, who is the secondary creator, and who is the Gunavatar of Krishna, he can be bewildered what to say of us. We are just minuscule. We are very small quantum-wise in comparison, in terms of our propensity and our ability to overcome the energy that's present. So let's go through the verses quickly, and then we will stop for questions. The first verse, I'm just going to read the translation. Srila Sukadev Goswami said, formerly, prior to the manifestation of the cosmos, Lord Brahma, by meditating on the Virat Rupa, regained his lost consciousness by appeasing the Lord. Thus, he was able to rebuild the creation as it was before. So meditating on the Lord gave back the memory that was lost. Essentially, what is being said here is that memory was lost because Lord Brahma was in touch with the mode of ignorance. The memory was regained because he became transcendentally situated. And he became transcendently situated by meditating on the Lord. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds, verse 2, the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life, while in the world of names. While in the world of names, you should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things. Say, for example, someone could hear going from one place to the other and you could be successful. Then that becomes sound energy, where it's establishing a paradigm which is completely different. Then they want to go and pursue it. It becomes the goal of life. Whether that's going to fit into the agenda of Krishna consciousness, we do not know. We have to be careful. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. He should be competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Now, how do we manage this? How do we manage to protect ourselves? We manage to protect ourselves by being chaste to a Guru Parampara. We spoke about it. And by being chaste to a Guru Parampara, we also follow the fundamental instruction of Mahaprabhu. What is the fundamental instruction? The fundamental instruction of Mahaprabhu is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna. Amani Manadena Krish Kirtane Sadahi. We endeavor by tolerating the circumstances of life. We accept what is being given to us today as Krishna's arrangement. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 9.22, what does he say in 9.22? Ananyas chintayanto mam e janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyam. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Krishna says, he's making a promise. He's saying that if you are engaging in devotional service, I carry what you lack and I preserve what you have. If we feel something is amiss in our life today, what does it mean? It means that we don't believe that Krishna is carrying what we lack and preserving what we have. We just don't believe that Krishna has done his part. A devotee needs to develop Trinadapi Sunichena. And what is that? That is to tolerate the circumstances of life and to accept today as what's being given to us. Accept the environment with its complexities. Accept what it is today and say that, okay, this is Krishna's arrangement. This is what he has given us. What am I doing to maximize the opportunity that has already been given? I have 24 hours. What am I doing with my time? What is my endeavor? What are my goals? So accepting that today has already been arranged, the circumstances of life have been arranged. And sometimes it may be good and sometimes it may not be. There might be powerful economic presence. Sometimes there might be poverty. Sometimes there could be good health and sometimes there could be poor health. Sometimes good relationships and sometimes problematic relationships. The first step in resolving anything is to accept that this is Krishna's arrangement. And seeing, after accepting it internally and meditating that this can't be without Krishna's will. I am serving Krishna, I am Krishna's devotee. This cannot be an arrangement outside of Krishna's will. So let me first accept it as Krishna's arrangement. This is Trinada Pisunicena, Tarori Vasaishnuna. Once that is done, the next step of what to do and what not to do is being revealed in the heart of the devotee by the Supersoul, by Krishna himself. The first step is to accept what is being given today and tolerate the circumstances of life. Our first step is that. It does not mean a lack of endeavor. It doesn't mean a lack of planning. In Grihastha life, there's always endeavor, there's always planning. But it should always be confined with chastity to the principles given by the Guru Parampara. So Srimad Bhagavatam basically is talking very clearly here that do not hear sound energy outside, because that can be bewildering. And this is 5,000 years back. Establish your faith based on Harinam. Establish your faith based on what is required for you to advance in Krishna consciousness. By accepting who you are today and accepting the circumstances of life, then Krishna will provide the intelligence for us to be able to move forward. When there are ample earthly flats, now this is Srimad Bhagavatam making it simple. This is basic. When there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of utensils? When there's ample covering of, or the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? So this is practically an extreme presentation of, if you really want to do it, everything is available. That's what this is about. This is about self-sufficiency. This is about self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is all about where there aren't too many artificial arrangements for existence. Today, why is the Western world, and why is it that even in India, there's such an alarm bell which is ringing? It's because there's so many different artificial arrangements for life that all of these artificial arrangements can collapse if there's a crisis. Isn't it fascinating that it is a virus, which is practically an organism which doesn't have a manifestation of an intelligent expression? It's a microorganism, it's a microbe. Of course, there are kleshas, there are adhyatmic kleshas, there are adi-daivik kleshas. This is a combination of adi-daivik and adhyat. It is a combination of all three in reality. It's a combination. There has been bad karmic reactions. When bad karmic reactions combine themselves with anger from the demigods and combine themselves with dangerous, I would say, entities such as a virus, then you have a crisis of epic proportion in your hands. Why is it that there's such panic? The panic is because lifestyles are artificial. There's an extraordinary dependence on many things which are basically somewhat, I would say, a state of dependence. That's what this is. So here, Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, what is it that you're worried about? When there's earth, why can't you just lie on earth? Why can't you take shelter of a tree? The tree will give you fruits if you're hungry. Why can't you take shelter of your own, your hand if you want a pillow? Srimad Bhagavatam is basically saying, for Krishna consciousness, you need nothing. All of this is available. It's plain, it's simple. This is basically gives you perspective. This is not to say that this is what you should do. This is not to say that it's a necessity for Krishna consciousness to go and lie in the open ground. This is not to say that. Please don't misunderstand this. Krishna consciousness is not dependent on austerities. But what is being spoken of here is that the simplification of life is an absolute necessity so that you don't think about things which are not to be thought of much. That's what is being driven home here. What is being driven home here is a message that simplification is very important. Even if there's a greater level of dependence on things which are outside of your control, then there will be a crisis because it won't deliver on time. Now this is the next verse. Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? When they talk about trees giving charity, they're talking about abundance of natural fruits and vegetables. Do the rivers being dried up no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Very powerful. Above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? Here, Srila Sukadev Goswami is questioning the wisdom of those who are sadhus externally, but who go and flatter those who are wealthy to receive donations. He basically was someone, he was a personality. Srila Sukadev Goswami was a personality who basically did not even wear clothes. He did not even choose to wear clothes because he was liberated. He was on the transcendental platform. He did not even want to encumber the endeavor of wasting his time trying to seek some kind of an arrangement which would give him comfort. He practically used to live off of the land, and he used to basically gain deep realizations. This was demonstrated by the Goswamis. This was demonstrated by the Goswamis. It was demonstrated by them that they used to live under trees. They used to basically have all their things and belongings tied into one single cloth. They used to wear loincloths. They used to accept in alms what is being given by and comes easily. And they used to spend a lot of time in Sri Radha Damodar Mandir in Seva Kunj, here in Vrindavan. Our Goswamis used to gather every day, and they used to have deep discussions and realizations of sharing of realizations. Those realizations were recorded, and that's why our Bhagavatam was written. Srila Prabhupada used Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur drew from Srila Jiva Goswami's work. All of this happened because there was an endeavor by the sadhus to keep life very simple so that they could just gather and share deep realizations and make records of the realizations. Less time spent maintaining the body, more time you get for Krishna consciousness. This was the paradigm. So that is the question that's being raised by Srila Sukadev Goswami, saying, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Aren't you supposed to basically share? Why is it that a sadhu should go and spend so much time with those who are intoxicated with wealth, begging them for resources? So he's questioning the need of sadhus to do that. He's basically saying, no, that doesn't qualify you. You can't be a mendicant, you can't be a renunciate and do this. You can't coexist that way. A renunciate and a mendicant means you simplify. You simplify to such an extent that you first establish dependence on Krishna. See, the primary quality of a sadhu is complete dependence on Nam. This is the primary quality. Everything else is secondary. That is being established in this verse. Complete dependence on Krishna. Are they going to eat? Are they going to have shelter? No questions. Krishna will provide. Faith. This is 9.22. Constantly accepting the circumstances. Yeah? Krishna says, I will preserve what you have, I'll carry what you lack. They lived it. The sadhus of Vrindavan lived it. They practically accepted what was given by Krishna. They practically lived Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you notice this? They were living Srimad Bhagavatam, the sadhus of Vrindavan, the Goswamis. This is basically food for thought. This is sound energy from Srimad Bhagavatam to make us reflect. This doesn't mean you uproot your existence. It means gain perspective. If the main goal of life is Krishna consciousness, you can do it, even if you have nothing. It's actually a very profound truth. Thus, being fixed, one must render service unto the Supra Soul, situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency. Because he is the almighty personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited, he is the ultimate goal of life, and by worshipping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. So I'm going to stop here. This is verse number 6. I'm going to stop here today, and I'll take some questions. I think we summarized several times, so we'll stop here and we'll take some questions. We'll go deeper next week into the chapter.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the class. I was just, one thing that was striking to me when you were mentioning towards the start, and we see in the past time when, when Lord Krishna comes down onto the earth, but you said about when by meditating on a universal form, we can overcome the forgetfulness. Devotees to meditate on Krishna in Vrindavan. But if Lord Brahma, who is also one of the, higher incarnations, has that ability to forget Krishna, even when he knew he was in Vrindavan and he came down and the pastime comes where he takes up the cowherd boys, how is it for us in that situation? Because those type of things come in my mind, that how can we able to meditate and keep it so strong when even Lord Brahma had to be reminded of this?
Okay, very good question, but then it's a simple answer. Because it is not dependent on us. As you go higher up, we start assuming that things are dependent on us. But where we are, it's very easy for us to understand that this is not dependent on us. We are completely dependent on mercy, kripa of the Guru Parampara, which is what we spoke of. Our whole business is to simply position ourselves to receive mercy. So we may not remember, we may not endeavor, we may not remember Krishna's names at the time of leaving our bodies, but Krishna remembers. Most importantly, we are connected to a parampara which has the ability to pull us out of this particular situation. So we are completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. God save us, just the very thought that if this thing was dependent on us, oh my goodness. Yeah, that would be one of the biggest problems one can even imagine if this was dependent. This is not dependent on us. Our business in sadhana bhakti is to position ourselves as beggars. The more efficient a devotee is when he learns how to beg, because we are recipients of mercy. Real efficiency, spiritual efficiency is to position ourselves to receive alms from the Guru Parampara. How do we do that? We endeavor by serving, by submitting ourselves and looking at everyone as being connected to Krishna. We endeavor so that we position ourselves to receive, just as much as someone who wants to beg needs to behave like a beggar, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a very fundamental thing.
Yes.
Someone wants to beg, they can't be authoritative, they can't be proud, they can't be arrogant. They need to know how to beg. Now, being in Lord Brahma's position, being the creator of the universe right at the top, this is not a very easy position to be in. That's why we are so fortunate that we can beg, because we know we have nothing.
Yes. So yeah, good point, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a wonderful lecture. Yeah, Prabhuji, just connecting with the same point that we are just beggars, and yes, we are dependent on mercy. Yes, 100%. But another thing is that we still have to control is our desire. So the what I understood is we have to do our part before begging.
Our part is begging. And we are begging, internally we keep our position in begging, and we endeavor by chanting and by doing what our Guru says. This is exactly what our part is.
Yeah, our part is doing chanting and following the rules. So rules in terms of we have to chase Guru Parampara. We have to control our desires around that only. And
well, basically, yes. Basically becoming chaste to the Guru Parampara. This is our business. How we become chaste is a matter of evolution in sadhana bhakti. It's a matter of how we do our sadhana. It should come naturally. It's a process. That is the process of anartha nivritti. That is the process of being able to give up on anarthas. When we give up on our anarthas, it is done through the mercy of Naam. It is done through the mercy of chanting Harinam. It is done through the mercy of coming in touch with Bhagavatam and through sadhus who have deep faith. Then when Anartha Nivati happens, then we position ourselves. That is the reason why it is said that a very advanced devotee is one who is also very humble. A state of advancement is connected to humility because as we advance, we realize how inefficient we are. As we advance, we realize how much we need mercy. As we advance, we realize how short we have fallen in terms of what is actually required to achieve and give what is being given. You know, a few months back, couple of months back, there was an initiation that happened here in Vrindavan, in our home, and of Guru Maharaj, of a different Guru Maharaj, Danodar Maharaj, he initiated. And I was doing the fire sacrifice, but I was also asked to speak. And when I was asked to speak before the initiation, and he was giving the initiation, he also spoke after I spoke. There was one thing which I realized. Yes, during the initiation, I was doing the yajna and I was setting everything up. But then I realized that what is more important is what is represented by His Holiness Danodar Swami, because he is representing the parampara. Nothing of what we could do, nothing could qualify us for what is being given by the parampara. Nothing. This does not mean that we don't endeavor. It simply means that we have to have a reality check and understanding that there's nothing that we can do which can qualify us for the extraordinary gift that's being given by the parampara. Nothing. And I said this. I said, yes, we are doing a yajna. We look for an auspicious day. We all gathered in Vrindavan. We did everything which was properly right, but none of this is basically, I would say, qualifying the disciple to receive what the parampara is giving us, which is an eternal relationship with the divine couple. There's nothing that we can do which can qualify us for an eternal relationship with the divine couple. Nothing. All we are doing is by being chaste to the instructions of the spiritual master, we're following the instructions of the spiritual master, we are positioning ourselves to receive mercy. This is all we are doing. We are positioning ourselves. We understand that we are beggars. That's the reason why it is said that when we make advancement, we are also humble. Because when we advance, we realize what the gift is. And when we realize what is the gift that's been given to us in Krishna consciousness, we also become very humble because we feel completely disqualified. And we also know, for realizations come, that this can't have been achieved by my effort alone. Then we become even more dependent on the Guru Parampara. Then greater things are achieved. That's the reason why it is also being said that for us to be able to be empowered to achieve things in Krishna consciousness, the two qualifications for empowerment are compassion and humility. Compassion is required to understand human suffering, to understand what is done. And you also need humility to position ourselves to receive power. Because along with compassion, when there is humility, one understands that on their own, they can do nothing. Then they step aside. Then Krishna steps in through his servants. And wonderful things can happen. So the point I was just wanting to make is to position ourselves. This is sadhana. Our sadhana is all about understanding how to position ourselves as proper servants to the Guru Parampara. This is all our sadhana is all about. The more chaste we are to that principle, the greater our protection. That chastity is a function of simplicity of the heart of the disciple. If a disciple's heart is simple, they will know how to take shelter of the Guru. They will know. They will not basically have any difficulty. It is when the disciple is complex and they think they're very intelligent, then there's difficulty, which again goes back to Jagannath Kirtananda Prabhu, your question as to why Lord Brahma was bewildered. Yes, he is the creator of the universe. He's the secondary creator. He is the most intelligent. He is the origin in one sense. So quite naturally, all of that can induce a certain sense of dependence on his own abilities. That's why he can be bewildered. But we can be qualified because we basically are receiving mercy and we can understand that our position is minuscule. It's insignificant. And what's being given is so lofty that we can never qualify ourselves by our own effort. But positioning ourselves requires an effort. following instructions requires an effort. That's what we are trying to do. We are basically saying, I'm chaste to your servants, Krishna, since you are carried in their hearts, and from their hearts they are given their faith to me. I'm just being chaste to the origin of my faith. By being chaste to the origin of my faith, I would somehow have an ability, some chance of making it back to you, because the ones who have given me faith are dear to you. I'm insignificant. This realization comes through. That's why you read verse after verse and poem after poem written by our Goswamis, which is full of humility. Why? Because as they advance, they realize the gift. When they realize how profound the gift is of being able to have a relationship with the divine couple, they also realize how unqualified they are for such a relationship. And they also realize how wonderful it is that they've received it. So they become fully grateful in their hearts. And that's the reason why you see the way they write their poems. You see poem after poem written by Narottam Das Thakur, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by Raghunath Das Goswami. There's so much, I would say, I would call it at some, self-criticism to some extent, where they would call themselves as wretches. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they would call themselves as being unqualified. They were not pretending when they were writing these poems. They meant it. And they meant it because they realized how lofty a gift Krishna consciousness was. Then they realized how unqualified they are. So that's why those poems came forth from their hearts. This is the point I was just wanting to make, is that ultimately, as you make advancement, you also become humble because you realize that you're not qualified. Because this is not something which can come through rituals, it can't come through fire sacrifices, it cannot come through ceremonies, it cannot come through scholarly attitudes. You don't need to be a scholar, you don't need to be a Shrutidar, you don't need to be a Pandit, you don't need to be anything. You need to be chaste to your spiritual master and the instructions given by the spiritual master. That's all there's need to be in this particular system. Because we are not dependent on any of these qualifications to advance and make it back to the spiritual sky. It's all about positioning ourselves as beggars and understanding it. That's why this is. This is just simply, this whole process is about positioning ourselves to receive alms. The bigger we are, the higher we go, that becomes a problem. That's why you see Lord Indra challenging Krishna. That's why you see Lord Brahma challenging Krishna. Any other question, comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, should we not do more endeavor to grow
Yes,
materially?
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, finish. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Should we not do much and more endeavor to grow materially?
I wouldn't really say that one shouldn't endeavor more, one shouldn't endeavor less. I wouldn't really say that. All I'm trying to say is basically one needs to look at everything from the perspective, from the tower of Krishna consciousness. Look at it from the perspective of what is conducive for sadhana bhakti. If you can't look at it from the perspective of sadhana bhakti, offer prayers to your guru, offer prayers to the Vaishnavas. This is how it's done. If you set up goals that are independent of what you need to achieve in Krishna consciousness, there's always a risk that you could be walking towards something which may not help. So as a consequence, I'm saying this is not a matter of whether you want to be a king or you want to be a beggar. It doesn't matter. A beggar for example, in India, a beggar who is sleeping under a tree can become so attached to the tree that he will chase you away if you go near the tree. A king can give up his mansion. So we are not really talking about being beggars and kings. We are not talking about what position we are in and whether we live in a 4-room house or we live in, a hut. We are not talking about that. We are talking about becoming distracted by goals that don't matter. So there's a need to evaluate goals at all times. There's a need to measure our performance in Krishna consciousness to match with those goals to see if our performance in Krishna consciousness is being affected by the thought process we have. Am I being extraordinarily agitated by what I don't have? Am I satisfied with what I have and I'm able to contribute whatever I can to Krishna consciousness? There are different ways to make assessments. That is all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the idea of material progress and not the lack thereof. I'm not talking about it at all. Because I have seen devotees who have achieved a lot materially, but who have also grown along with it spiritually. They kept using whatever was given in service of Krishna. I've seen it. So it is not, I've seen it practically. So the point I'm just trying to make is, this has nothing to do with the pursuit or the coming into wealth. This has nothing to do with how you're situated. It simply has to do with the idea that please evaluate whatever you do on a daily basis in relationship to your Krishna consciousness. Is it contributing or is it taking you away? Is it establishing you on a path which can eventually take you away to the point where you can forget Krishna? That's what I'm talking about. That's all. We have to be practical. So we have seen this. Srila Prabhupada was very comfortable in a hut. Srila Prabhupada was very comfortable in a palace. He was very comfortable riding in very polluted conditions in different parts of India when he was preaching. He was very comfortable going across different parts of the world in luxury. He had nothing to do with preferences in terms of how it should be. He simply accepted it. He used it in Krishna's service. Yeah? The point is, it doesn't bother us. It does not really matter. But if there is a goal which is being set up, which is standing alone, which has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, in reality, then you have a problem. It needs to be evaluated. One needs to submit themselves to whoever they are in touch with in terms of an authority so that they could evaluate the circumstances of life and get some insight in terms of whether they're even on the path or they're off. This is all I'm talking about. We have to be careful in evaluating things. We have to be very careful. Material energy is very complex, and all in a sudden you could establish yourself on a path, and 10 years down the line you could find yourself in a situation where you're moved far, far, far away from Krishna consciousness. That's why this needs to be done very carefully. There have to be a lot of praying that is to be done, saying, Krishna, take away whatever needs to be taken away. Sabotage my projects, sabotage my desires, sabotage everything that is going to interfere with Krishna consciousness. Do this prayer in the morning. Stand before the deities and do this prayer. Let them do what is possible. Because we don't have the ability to decide what is going to sabotage our Krishna consciousness. So let Krishna sabotage whatever is required so that we move forward. Let him kill those desires as they creep up in the heart. This is a very, very important thing. This is anartha nivritti, where we start focusing on a singular goal and tell Krishna that, Krishna, I am not capable of managing this goal. I have been unsuccessful. I have been unsuccessful for so many lifetimes, and that's the reason why I'm here on this planet. I do not want to be unsuccessful again. Therefore, please, Krishna, do me a favor, sabotage anything and everything that is going to interfere with my Krishna consciousness. This is what we are supposed to do. This is anartha nivritti. This is how we are supposed to desire things. This is not destructive. It is constructive, because we learn through our mistakes and we learn that we are not good at managing things. Krishna will never interfere with Krishna consciousness. He will never interfere with Krishna consciousness. He wants us to come back. He wants us to come closer. He loves us. So we want to give the reins to his hands. Drive my chariot, take me in the direction you want me to. But that requires love. You see, because we don't love him, we are afraid of him. We are afraid of making the statement before Krishna because we are afraid that he would cause us some harm. We are afraid of him because we fear him. We don't love him. That's why Krishna says, Manmanava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. He says, please first fall in love with me. Once you fall in love with me, you will know how to surrender. Because we can surrender to those whom we love. We don't feel vulnerable. We are very afraid to surrender to those whom we don't love, which is our position with Krishna. We can't make this prayer saying, Krishna, sabotage. Go ahead, Krishna. This is a free hand. I'm not going to interfere. Turn my life around. Put me where I'm supposed to be. I want to succeed in what has been given to me by Srila Prabhupada. We can't do it. We are afraid to do it. Why? We experience fear because we don't trust him. We don't trust Krishna. Yeah, this is the truth. As bitter and as, I would say, controversial it may sound, this is the truth. That's why 18.65 is Manmanavo Madbhakto Madhyajivam Namaskuru. He says, you have to fall in love with me. Krishna is telling very precisely, he says, fall in love with me. That's 18.65. It's very confidential instruction. 18.66, he says, Sarvadharman Paritejya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Surrender. Keep me as a singular focus. Keep my agenda as your agenda. And what does he also say in the same verse, 18.66 of the Bhagavad Gita? He says, Ma Sochaha. He says, don't worry, don't be afraid. He knows we are afraid. We are afraid because we don't love him. We are afraid of him. Because we come culturally, in many cases, from situations where we have been asked to fear God. We have not been asked to love God until Prabhupada came into our lives. Until Srila Prabhupada came into our lives, we were not asked to love God. We were asked to fear God. Srila Prabhupada came into our lives and he told us, no, stop fearing, start loving, start serving, which is what Krishna wants. And then we have the ability to move forward. See, this is about wanting what is good for us. This is about being non-duplicitous, because by nature we carry duplicity. We carry multiple desires. This is the 10th offense when we chant the holy name. Why does the 10th offense say carrying material desires even after receiving so many instructions on this topic? It says this because we do it. That is duplicity. We carry so many desires. It does not mean we are not on the path. It does not mean our situation is precarious. It simply means there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of room for improvement. And Krishna doesn't really nitpick. He's not really going to say that, look, there's a material desire there. He's not looking into a heart and saying, oh, there's a material desire, and there's another material desire. He's not looking at it from that perspective of nitpicking and fault finding. He looks at it holistically. He looks at us holistically. He says, okay, here's who they are. Yes, they have some issues. Yes, they have some challenges, but for most part, they want to serve me. For most part, they want to come near me. They want to serve me. They want to love me. So Krishna makes all kinds of wonderful arrangements based on that premise. So this does not mean that we have to be self-critical to the point where we start feeling bad and guilty, but we need to understand that there are issues. We have to be honest as well. That's what this is.
Prabhuji, we are living in material world. So I have two things. One is you said that we have to develop love for Krishna, and that is very true. That I don't know about others, but I fear from Krishna, and sometimes I love Krishna. It's really mixed, and maybe more of fear, especially when I see in Kali Yuga, if you open up news or hear this is happening, that is happening, that creates more, it's more anxiety, and then when we hear Krishna Katha and we are in different mode, then the love arises in heart too. But what is the good way to develop love for Krishna?
Which is exactly what Srila Prabhupada has already given us. Chant, serve, come in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, develop a desire to visit the Dham, do more and more and more, make improvements. That's all there is. That's all there is. Make improvements on the fundamental process. This is not a new process. The very first class in Krishna consciousness is going to give you everything you need to go back to Godhead. Very first class. If that class has been planned and is presented fully, comprehensively, you will have everything. So the point I'm trying to make is that this is not a new process. We are not introducing anything new. We are simply saying that one needs to account for where they are in this process. Okay, let's see if someone else has questions and comments as well. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I have one question related to when it said in Bhagavatam, Lord has forgot to wear shoes or some other activities like this as human beings do. Then when we talk with our friends, like to establish that Vishnu or Krishna is the Supreme Lord and other things, even traditional Brahmins, I heard they telling that all these are just some poetic way to express, to bring us to Jnana knowledge platform. Otherwise, these are all not exactly true. Like that, this discussion comes. So how can we understand this, bro?
Good question. In reality, we don't want to interpret scripture. If Krishna is writing in Srimad Bhagavatam through Sukadev Goswami that he has forgotten his shoes, it means that the idea of Vaishnavas being offended is so big that he even forgets to wear his shoes. He comes in a hurry. The Lord prioritizes his devotees, special devotees, so much so that he can come. As much as, for example, if there's someone whom we care for, who is very important, who is coming to our house, we may tend to forget certain things. We may rush to greet them. We may forget certain etiquettes. We may forget to, maybe wear a special kind of cloth, etc. We're just going to rush out to greet them. So I would not pay any heed to those who are interpreting scripture. The Bhagavatam is precise when it says what it says. I would accept it as it is. That is the first point. Second is when there is a metaphor where it is an analogy, it is to be understood this way. The Bhagavatam is clear on those aspects as well. In other words, for example, the story of Puranjana is a metaphor. And that metaphor is made clear by our acharyas. They are not saying it is real. They're basically saying it's a metaphor. Yeah. But this thing where Krishna forgets his shoes and he comes down to greet the Kumaras because he's afraid that the devotees have offended him because he cares so much for Vaishnavas, that is not an exaggeration. It is the truth. Yeah. So I would just accept it exactly as they are. Because there's a whole concept of, oh, it is like this and we should just accept it this way, that way, then we are going in a path which is quite dangerous. So it's better to accept those things as they are. But it's a very good question that you asked.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. And these are not the regular people. These are people who give lectures on TV and who are named as scholars. When some certain questions come, they will be stick to the Advaita philosophy, and they will say these are all required only to bring you to Jnana level. And I don't understand but still they continue praying to Lord Balaji or Vishnu, Rupas, all that. They don't completely avoid that also. In their houses, they keep all these photos, everything. When they say these are all, another way they say these are all not needed actually, but just to bring us to a certain level, temporarily these are required. And when we ask why don't you keep anything you like instead of exactly this photo or some other photo? There won't be proper answer, but I don't understand what convinces them so much that Advaita is ultimate truth.
It is basically consciousness.
Yeah.
See, there are 2 points I want to make. I spoke about it, I think, in a previous class, 2 classes back, or just the previous class. You should listen to it. I spoke about the fact that you can also have impersonalists worshipping Radha Krishna. Radha Krishna deities can be worshipped even by impersonalists, but the objective of the impersonalist is to leave the universe and be liberated. So they worship the deities for the purpose of purification. So they say that if I worship the deities, then my senses would be purified, my body would be purified, my subtle body would be purified, and slowly, steadily, I'll give up my conditioning, and then I'll be liberated, and either I merge into the deities or I merge into Brahman. So the objective of the worshipper is very important. That's the reason why Srila Rupa Goswami says, Jnana Karmadi Anavratam. Don't keep objectives of wanting to be liberated when you approach the divine couple. Don't keep objectives of wanting certain things to be achieved in this world when you approach the divine couple. Keep the idea of approaching the divine couple for service foremost. That's the reason why Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavratam is being given to us. So we are guided by the personal devotees of the Lord. We're guided by the Vaishnava philosophy. If most of the world is in Advaita Siddhanta, it is because most of the world does not desire wanting to love Krishna and wanting to serve Krishna. They are desiring either liberation because they're suffering, or they're desiring fruitive activities, both of which can pull one towards and motivate one towards worshipping, but not necessarily in the manner in which our acharyas have given us. And lastly, why is it that most people are in impersonal consciousness? The corollary, or the opposite of it, is that devotees and Vaishnavas are very few. It's a very rare opportunity. There's a very rare opportunity. That's the reason why not everybody would be attracted. And even if they become attracted, they come to us, they may leave us. We see that. And the reason is because qualifying for a personal relationship with the Lord and serving Him in the spiritual sky is a rare opportunity. It is not something which can be had by everyone. Mercy is given by Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is distributing this mercy all over. But then whether people can really take it up and succeed and move forward, we do not know. They come and they go. Sometimes they stay. Yeah, this is what it is. It's an efficient process. It is an efficient process not only because a lot of devotees can join, and across the globe you can distribute Harinam and you will find people joining. It is an efficient process because a lot of people who come can also leave. So the weeding in Krishna consciousness is also very efficient. Nobody leaves Krishna consciousness, they're thrown out. Nobody leaves Krishna consciousness. Nobody does. They are thrown out because of consciousness. There's a shift. So they can't continue anymore. The weeding process is very efficient in our movement. Lord Nityananda, he is just distributing Harinam and Prem throughout the universe. He's just distributing from all his heart. He's weeping and saying everybody should accept it. And many accept it. Once they come in and they accept it, they also give up if they're not properly situated, because the process of weeding and removing insincere people is also very powerful. And that is how a process should be. A process should be powerful enough where it can take care of itself and not allow insincere, duplicitous people to continue. So our process is very powerful in that regard. We can see both. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
And the extension to the Ravindra Prabhu question, in the family, like where we have two people, one follow our Sampradaya, another person follow the normal Hindu Sampradaya. Now, when we listen to these lessons from the outside people, how can we control, like we don't get bewildered or confused, or we will be shifted to the different route?
Well, we basically have to be chaste to what we are doing. So we need to be chaste to what we are doing, and we need to focus on what we are doing to such an extent that we stay protected and we are able to see the truth. In reality, if you come into Srila Prabhupada's movement and you come in touch with Siddhanta given by Srila Prabhupada, everything else will become super clear. That's been my experience. And as a consequence, the more chaste we are to what's been given by Srila Prabhupada, greater would be our ability to see what is not proper. See, it is not a matter of something being wrong, or it is not a matter of saying that everybody else is bad and only we are good. That is not a right conception either. There is faith outside, and in many areas there could be faith which may not be as chaste and as focused as we have. What is being given to us by Srila Prabhupada is extraordinary. It doesn't mean everybody else has a mess. We want to appreciate faith. Faith is a very scarce commodity. It's very scarce. It's not available easily. And if someone has faith in something else and they want to pursue it, that's also valuable. Let them pursue it. What we do is we invite them and we give them an opportunity. We position ourselves in such a way like Lord Nityananda did. Lord Nityananda used to fall on the ground and beg others to chant Harinam. We position ourselves very humbly and request them to chant Harinam. By doing so, they would also be able to appreciate what we have as a philosophy. But it doesn't mean that they have nonsense and they have, what we would call as a mess. Yes, there's always the situation that after coming into Srila Prabhupada's philosophy, we'll understand what is outside very clearly. But we should also understand that there is faith. It may be mixed with a little bit of falsehood. It could be interspersed with certain things which don't make sense to us. But we need to tread very carefully because that's faith. That person has faith in something. We don't want to disturb it. We can look at this by the behavior of Lord Shiva. What does Lord Shiva do? Being the Param Vaishnav, being the greatest of Vaishnavas, he is also completely non-envious. As a consequence, even if the demons approach him for something, he gives it to them. What does he see in the demons? He sees faith. What kind of faith does he see in the demons? He sees faith where a demon comes in touch with a mantra and the demon says, if I chant this mantra, I'm going to receive this outcome. So the demon is chanting a mantra for sometimes destructive outcomes and very material outcomes. But there is faith in the process. As a consequence, Lord Shiva doesn't want to discourage that. He says, okay, you chant and I'll give you the results of the mantra. If your mantra and your objectives are destructive to the world, then you will be destroyed by it. If it's beneficial, then you will benefit from it. So the same way, we want to take a little bit of a careful view of other people's activities. We don't want to destroy faith. We want to correct and encourage and increase it. And that is done by helping them move ahead from the mode of ignorance, passion to goodness. As we advance their consciousness, then their faith would become ready to receive Krishna consciousness as well. So this is what we need to do. We need to be very careful when we're dealing with faith, because it's not easy to be faithful. It's very difficult to be faithful in this world. Very difficult. So it doesn't mean that Christianity is nonsense, doesn't mean that this is nonsense, that is nonsense. No. That faith needs to be appreciated because there is faith. We don't want to be sectarian. We don't want to look at something and say, somehow or the other, that we have the best and then everybody else has the mess. We don't want to do that, because that will not help us give them what is required. We need to look at them and say, yes, they have faith. They are somehow or the other worshipping and appreciating the separated energies of Krishna. How do I bring them back to Krishna consciousness? What is it that I can do? Can I invite them for kirtan? Can I invite them for prasadam? This is our business. We need to basically strategize to give them a good experience. Give them a very good experience, which their senses can appreciate. Srila Prabhupada used to have Sunday feasts with great care. Why? It was required so that the senses could be addressed in a proper way. The feast used to be good. Yeah, Jananand Goswami, His Holiness Jananand Goswami, he was sharing with me once that the Sunday feast those days, they used to have puris. They used to serve puris, and the puris, they used to take such good care in wanting to ensure that the puris don't become flat. When you fry the puris, they're puffed up. So they used to create cardboard cartons which keep the puris puffed up. This was the amount of care they used to take in wanting to present the Sunday feast. Why was it done? Because in Srila Prabhupada's time, he understood that for someone who has faith and who is basically wanting to understand Krishna, his experiences have to be very nice. So you invite him and give him a very good feast, allow them to experience kirtan. Everybody appreciates Krishna kirtan. And then this is what it is. It begins the journey. If they're fortunate enough, they offer some service. So this is what we need to do. So we do not want to think that the faith in the hearts of people who are not like us is useless. It is not. It is actually very useful because it is faith. There must be a reason why Mahaprabhu chose Srila Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Muslim family to be made the Namacharya. Yeah? Why was Srila Haridas Thakur made the Namacharya? Srila Gauranga Mahaprabhu basically wanted to tell us and give us a message that there are no boundaries to whom Krishna consciousness can reach. It is completely non-sectarian. So we don't want to make any assumption about the capacity of people to accept Krishna. We don't want to make any assumption about where they are with their faith. Even if it is not what we do, it's useful and it has to be appreciated. This is the view of our acharyas. It is not my presentation, or it is not what I believe in. This is the view of our acharyas. This is the view of how our Siddhanta is. Any other question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Hare Bol. As usual, it's so wonderful, and especially at this time of the what is happening in the world now, to hear to such this type of a class, it's so enlightening. You don't fear anymore when you listen like this. We can go on listening, unfortunately, but you won't be able to do that.
Why are you doubting me?
Oh, I will be very happy, Prabhu, if you can. Oh my God, no.
No, no problem.
Okay. I want to say, actually, Science of Self-Realization book, Srila Prabhupada's. I think that book is an eye-opener for many, many of us, and many people on the street or anywhere. Everybody say, "Oh my God, this is everything." That book is everything. Basically, it can go to anybody's hand, and they can understand what is Krishna consciousness, at least up to a certain extent. The science. I hope you're getting me what I'm saying. That's a very, very nice book. So I was thinking, I think Srila Prabhupada has made that attempt, and he had really made us easier for us to approach everybody, giving us these books.
Absolutely. The clarity which is given after coming in touch with Srila Prabhupada is not just the clarity of the presentation, it is also because we are receiving a lot of mercy. We can't understand anything if we don't receive this mercy.
Oh,
we understand it because we are receiving mercy as well.
Yeah, of course, yes. His mercy will be always there. Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I will like to add a comment that just the book Mataji was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not a book. I was not a book reading person. Like when I joined Krishna consciousness, and somehow from your lecture, I got inspired to read, and Science of Self-Realization was the first book that I started reading, and I vowed that every day I will, before bed, I will open the book. If I'm not able to read I'm not in the mood to read the book, I will open the book, I will read one line and close. And Science of Self-Realization was a book that when I opened the book, I had realization that I didn't even feel like closing it. I will sit with, I'm very tired, I will read just one paragraph, but I will ended up reading 20 books, 20 pages, 25 pages, and still wanted to continue, but it was night and I have to sleep, and I'll close the book. And that was, I felt like Prabhupada is sitting next to me and while reading that book. Thanks to Prabhupada for contributing that wonderful book.
Sure.
Sure.
Is there anything else? Any comment or any question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. There's one astrologer who has said that this coronavirus will end very soon and things will start getting back to normal. Is that something you can add on to?
I would say that I would not disagree, but it's going to become worse before it gets better. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. In other words, that I think that the peak would probably be the May-June timeframe. And then there would be some resolution. So this is a very karmic experience. And it's a karmic experience because the concept of negative karma and inauspiciousness at this time is very heavy. It's very heavy. And it's manifesting itself in different parts of the world through disease, different parts of the world through anxiety on account of seeing people fall sick. There's a lot of mental suffering and anxiety. It's very inauspicious. And the point I'm just trying to make is that for it to subside, it's going to take a little bit more. I would probably agree with that statement. And I would also say that, yes, but it is not really done its course. I think it can get worse before it gets better.
Oh, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say, did you say June? Oh my God.
No, the reason I'm saying that, you see, yes, here's the thing. I don't think we would want to extend it or thinking to such an extent that we start projecting anxiety into the present. That's not the intention of my saying May and June. I was wanting to say that this has barely started. It has barely started doing its circles. We just do not even know. And the expectation is that it could take at least a couple of more months because we're already in April. We're already in April. So we could practically take a couple of more months for it to peak and then subside. But the point which we want to just make here is that as devotees, we would always want to understand that between us and the different kinds of challenges that face the world at this particular moment, there's Krishna. So yes. Our endeavor at this time has to be in such a way that we remove the mode of ignorance from our existence.
Yeah.
Because disease and negativity come upon and make us overwhelmed when we are also in the mode of ignorance. As a consequence, sticking to the morning program wherever we are at home, doing Guru Puja very diligently, because that's going to help immensely in protection, and doing a sadhana very diligently and praying to Lord Narasimhadev for protection. This is what we need to do. The point I'm just trying to make is upgrade your consciousness, because this is an entirely karmic circumstance.
Yeah.
If it is affecting the whole planet, it is a very powerful karmic circumstance. And the best way to stay protected is to elevate our consciousness. By elevating our consciousness to the mode of goodness, that requires observing the morning program, doing Guru Puja, which is very essential. And by doing that, what would happen is that we would automatically be protected.
Yeah.
We would come under protection. So let's assume that we may even say, for example, God forbid a devotee falls sick. That devotee is still being protected so that the sickness really doesn't hamper their existence to such a level where it becomes impossible for them to serve. So between us and complexities of material world, there's Krishna. So the more we endeavor to elevate our consciousness, the greater our protection. So our effort should not so much be projecting anxiety upon ourselves, but it should be to focus on improving our sadhana, especially the morning program. Think about it. Disease is a condition of the mode of ignorance.
Yeah.
It slows us down. Morning program is all about giving us the platform of goodness to operate. So if you operate on the morning program, and if you elevate your consciousness by observing the morning program very nicely, then you are already in a very good place to protect yourself. That's what we need to do. So what I'm trying to say is that, there is not so much where we can, it's not so much a matter of how many months it would take or what's going to happen. It is a matter of being able to do what you can today to increase your Krishna consciousness. It would help immensely. Yes.
Just wanted to say, Prabhu, sometimes I think even the non-devotee, like I can't say everybody is a devotee in a different level, but everybody start to realize now, this is happening, there should be something behind this. They understand at least there is some superpower behind. There's all nature, everybody. Although all this time they never understood, they say nature, it's happening. It's just like, but now they understand that somebody is behind, or something is behind, at least, So I was just thinking to myself, this is a bigger plan of the Lord for everybody to make them understand. To hear Mahaprabhu's message, they have to come to a certain platform. Then only at least they will be a little, open to hear what we have to say.
Yes, because it's I would say yes. And I would say then it also becomes a responsibility to distribute Krishna consciousness even more vigorously.
Yes.
So the point I'm just trying to make is praying to Krishna to be an instrument, and to be able to extend ourselves in his service at this point in time is very important.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a combination. So number one, we don't fear. We don't fear outcomes because we have Krishna with us.
Yes.
But we do our part to bring Krishna closer to our life by ensuring that we are in the platform of goodness where we can access Krishna consciousness. So planning and strategizing for the morning program is an absolute must for devotees during this time. Absolute. This would give us an opportunity to be in the mode of goodness, so that we could endeavor to take off and go deeper into Krishna consciousness. Vrindavan, the Dham has shut down. ISKCON temple in Vrindavan is shut down.
Yeah.
All the big temples in Vrindavan have shut down. Yeah. The place where I live in Raman Reti, they have shut down, where for the next 10 days, they don't want to bring any outsider inside the place. Nobody can come to deliver anything. We have to go outside to get milk. So the point is that this place is shutting down too. They're shutting down because they're afraid of wanting people to come in and go, and then they can bring in, because there are a lot of traffic which comes from outside of India to Vrindavan these days. So they have shut down. The airports are getting shut down. The point I'm trying to make is that all of this sometimes can bring a culture of fear. But let's understand how we can protect ourselves. Protecting ourselves requires that we move away from the mode of ignorance. That is done by the morning program. That is done by Guru Puja. That is done by worshipping the deities you have at home nicely. That is done by chanting Harinam nicely, coming in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, coming in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis in itself is a deep protection. Do the Narasimha prayers, Lord Narasimha Dev's prayers. So the point I'm trying to make is that we don't want to become anxious, but we do need to act, because something of this scale, which is acting globally, you can't really say that it is just happening randomly and it is because of one raw cause or the other. It's affecting the whole world. It will affect the whole world at some point or the other. Economically, health-wise, there's definitely going to be an impact. But how do we protect ourselves? We ensure that we do the part which we have been given, which is the morning program. Like today, they were telling us, they sent a message saying that you have to stock up today because they're closing up. You can still walk in Vrindavan and you will notice the, I would say Indian residents who come to visit Vrindavan, they're not stopped. They have their little food outside, the little carts. Nobody is afraid, but you can still see a lot of people wearing masks in Vrindavan. You go to buy groceries in the grocery shop, you find people wearing masks. The rickshaw-walas are wearing masks. And then All the temples are being shut down. So seva is going on. The deities are being worshipped, but they've been shut down.
Yeah.
So that's the state that we are in. So the point is that it is big. This is big. But at the same time, there's a way out. The way out has already been given to us by our acharyas. Great calamities have been warded off by Krishna consciousness. Great calamities.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is, do not worry, but do your part. The most important is to be in the mode of goodness, sattva. Do your part by being in sattva. Do what is required and contribute to your sattva by the morning program. And that in itself will protect us from great harm. A resolution for disease occurs in the mode of goodness. That's how it works. Disease gets rectified in the mode of goodness. What is missing today in the world and the crisis that we are facing is a crisis where the mode of goodness, sattva, has been dealt with in a very bad way. So there's been wholesale slaughter of cows for so many years. There's been so much violence which is being exchanged between one human being and the other. All kinds of entertainment that is being adhered to is filled with mode of ignorance. There's food intake which is filled with mode of ignorance. So the problem that we face today is one which is completely based on the concept of tamas. So when the population is predominantly tamasic, then diseases come because they also exist in the mode of ignorance and they destroy. How do you protect yourself? You fix it by elevating yourself and moving to the platform of goodness. This is what you need to do. By doing that, this practically would give us a way out. There would be some intelligence provided for us to be able to move forward. Please remember 9.22, where Krishna says, I'll preserve what you have and I'll carry what you lack. He says that. Never forget the fact that whatever is being said in the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's own words, and it will be true. It will be true. In other words, it would manifest. That's what I was trying to say, is it would manifest. To the extent to which we have faith, it would manifest in our lives.
Yeah, Prabhu, I just wanted to ask you this question. Another devotee was mentioning chapter 11, reading Bhagavad Gita chapter 11 would help at this type of situation. That's is it correct, Prabhu? Is it? Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, basically, I would say chapter 11 deals with Krishna basically displaying his Virat Rupa.
Virat Rupa, yes.
Yeah, he is displaying, and this is what we did today, which is the chapter 1 and 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam of second canto.
Yeah.
I would say that you can simply do the morning program given by Srila Prabhupada and do the Guru Puja. Guru Puja is very important because it automatically gives us an opportunity to experience sattva.
Prabhu, just to ask you, you always, in fact, earlier I was doing only some Saradhana prayers, and then I changed to Guru Puja. So are you saying Guru Puja is more important than some Saradhana prayers?
Not necessarily, but Guru Puja is a very personal prayer to make to the Guru itself. So it is a very personal prayer. It is not so much a prayer of someone who is serving the Guru to serve the divine couple, but this is basically serving the Guru as a sadhaka.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's a very powerful prayer. And when you worship with Guru Puja, you offer incense, you lamp and flowers. Yeah. It would do a world of good. That in itself is protection. Please don't forget to do that, because that is exactly what is going to protect us in this particular time, is to take shelter of Sri Guru. Yeah. I'm giving you something which Srila Prabhupada has already given if you just follow the morning program.
Yeah.
But in reality, even if you were to approach me for a material solution to this fix, I would say do Guru Puja. That's exactly what is required. Yeah.
Okay. And Gajendra Moksha, is that also beneficial at this time?
There are many prayers in our practice. Say, for example, the killing of Bakasura by Krishna, meditating on the killing of Bakasura by Krishna in the Krishna book, that is also considered to be very powerful.
Okay.
One can read the Narayan Kavach in the 6th canto. It is an ultimately powerful Kavach for any kind of calamity. It is in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's so much which is being given to us. What I'm saying is, start and then you would receive intelligence. But I would say stick to the morning program, do Guru Puja, do your rounds. If you find time, you can do all these additional readings.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna Prabhuji. Very short and concise question. Prabhuji, which verse did we do today, Prabhuji, as per the book?
It is actually, we did second chapter of the 2nd canto. And we did verses 1 through 6.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, then we'll end the session. If you have any questions in addition that have not been addressed, please do write to me. You can write to me on WhatsApp. Or if you feel you want to share to the group, you can share to the group as well on WhatsApp. I would be happy to address it. So thank you very much for spending the time with me, because, yeah, this is the best way to spend time with Vaishnavas in Sangha reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's very, very, I would say, appreciated and profound. So thank you very much. Wish you all a very safe week until we speak next. And yes, Krishna is there, so there shouldn't be any anxiety. Yeah, we just have to ensure that we do what is required. Hare Krishna.